Hi guys, my name is Alexis and welcome back to my channel. My last video ended with me talking about going to visit Camila in the NICU. So this video I will be talking about Camila being in the NICU and our NICU experience and how it was a little bit different than what we expected it to be. So I will give a little bit of a backstory. So what we expected was for Camila to be in the NICU for a few days and then she was going to be having surgery 3, 4, 5 days after being born. That's what I was told before I had given birth. That was our plan going forward. Let's fast forward to I gave birth and now I'm gonna go visit Camila in the NICU. I was so excited. I definitely was jealous because Ben had already gone to the NICU and he had already been like seeing her. So I was really anxious to get going. I was super excited to see her. I'd been seeing pictures of her, but I hadn't seen her quite yet. So once we went down to the NICU, we weren't able to hold her because Camila did have her umbilical IV catheter in, so we weren't able to hold her, but we were able to touch her, like her arms and legs. She was only wearing like a diaper. She wasn't swaddled because she couldn't be, but she was covered up with blankets, kind of. I'll enter a few pictures to kind of explain what I'm talking about, but she was covered. She was wearing a cute little hat, and it was kind of hard not being able to hold her right away, but she seemed to be doing really good. Right away, she was put on some IV fluids, so Camila wasn't going to be eating milk right away. She was going to be put on IV fluids that were going to be giving her the nutrients that she needed. So she was okay there. She didn't seem too hungry or anything yet, so she was fine. She really was just sleeping and hanging out. So during those first few hours of her life, she did get an echo done. Because of her heart condition, they wanted to do an echo on her. Since I've only had echoes when I was pregnant to see her heart, they wanted to see it as soon as she was born to see if the diagnosis was correct. And she also got a ultrasound of her head and of her tummy to make sure everything looked good. So her ultrasound of her head and her tummy looked awesome, like that looked good. We were a little bit concerned that there could be any other health issues because something was wrong with her heart. There could be a chance that there could be something wrong with something else. So they just were making sure everything was okay. She also got some extensive testing done to make sure that this wasn't connected to anything else, that this was solely only her heart defects. That first day when we were just hanging out, the NICU nurses were really nice. I remember the first one we had, she was so nice. She was really explaining to me like how to like touch her and just kind of encouraging, because I think she was used to seeing like moms going through this whole experience of like you just had a baby and they're in the NICU and you're not being able to hold them. It's not the usual. It's not what any mom wants. So she was really comforting and like was very encouraging, and also like just let me feel whatever I was feeling. If I was I was teary, it was hard seeing her because she did have IVs and she did have IV in her legs, and it wasn't the most uplifting thing to see. So it was really good to have like a really nice supportive nurse with us there. Later in the day, later like in the afternoon, almost evening, a cardiologist came and saw us and wanted to review her echo and what they saw. The cardiologist that we saw in the NICU was not her normal cardiologist. The cardiologist that Camila sees, it wasn't his turn to be in the NICU that week. He was going to go and see her, but the one who reviewed her echo was a different cardiologist. He did come in and was explaining to us what he saw. He did tell us that yes, Camila still has double outlet right ventricle with transposition of the great arteries, but he did explain that they seemed more complex than what we had seen when I was pregnant. Things weren't going to be able to be fixed as easily or as quickly as we wanted them to. This was the first time I was hearing this, so I think I was really just like hearing, more bad news really, and that was really hard for me. So I don't remember a lot of what he was saying that first time he told me. He did say things are a little bit more complicated in her heart. She won't be getting surgery in the next few days because her heart is more complicated. I remember him talking about she will be needing some type of band surgery in a few weeks, and then we will be doing corrective surgery down the line. That totally was not what we had thought we were gonna do. I was expecting her to get surgery in a few days after life. be in recovery, and a month later we'd be at home and we'd put surgery behind us and we wouldn't have to deal with it anymore. We could move on. And that's not what he was telling us was going to happen. He was saying, there was going to be multiple surgeries involved. That was really hard to hear to know. I mean, it was already going to be, my baby was going to have one surgery. Now you're telling me at least two. That it just kind of broke me, and I kind of just stopped. I think I kind of just like stopped hearing what he had to say, just from being like so focused on wanting to pay attention to Camila, but also I just couldn't hear any more bad news. I couldn't process anything else at that point. He did say that, he would come back and continue to talk to us, and the surgeon would also be coming in the next few days to explain to us a little bit more what's going on. I love Camila's surgeon. He's awesome. So I was really looking forward to seeing him so he could explain to me what's going on, because I know he's like a very thorough, and he will really like tell me the way I will understand it. And I just want to know like what his plan was going to be, because he was the one that was going to fix her heart. I wanted to know what he was going to do. That first day was, hard, knowing that she was going to have more than just one surgery. But we did get some good news. So we had anticipated Camila needing medication to keep the hole in between her ventricles, her BSD, open, because if it closed, then her blood would not be getting any oxygen. So we anticipated her needing medication, but we ended up not needing it at all. So that was awesome. She was keeping really high oxygen levels all on her own without needing any extra oxygen. We thought that she would be needing extra oxygen. We thought she would be needing medication, and she didn't need any of that. She didn't even have a heart murmur yet, and that was really surprising. A lot of doctors were just very surprised to hear that she was a heart baby in the NICU when she didn't appear to be one. If you were to just look at her and hear her, her heart sounded normal. Her oxygen levels were in the high 90s. She just looked great. They did warn me, saying that she might be a little bit blue in her mouth, her fingers, but she wasn't. She was just a normal, a pinkish color, and that was really awesome just to know like she was doing so good, especially because we didn't expect for her to be doing so good. Still wasn't able to hold her, but I was happy to hear that she wasn't going to be on oxygen and all this medicine right off the bat. She just was on the IV fluid. Because I had the preeclampsia, I had to stay in the hospital for 2 days. So I was going back and forth from the postpartum to the NICU. My vitals had to get checked every 4 hours because of my high blood pressures, and they just wanted to make sure I was doing okay. So I was going back and forth from postpartum, then I was going to the NICU, and then I was attempting to pump. So all day, really, my day was just consisted of waking up. I was getting checked every 4 hours, and even in the middle of the night, every 4 hours by the nurses. They would do rounds on Camila, so I always wanted to be there early in the morning to be there for her rounds. And then I'd be pumping, and then I'd go back to postpartum in time to do vitals, and then I'd go back to the NICU. So it was a lot of back and forth through the hospital, a lot of walking back and forth. Camila, in the hospital she was at, they had what they call care times. And during her care times, they would wipe her eyes, wipe her mouth, they would change her diaper, check her temperature, and eventually when she got to feed, that's also when they would feed her. So her care times were every 3 hours. Her care times were scheduled around me having to go back to postpartum to get checked out myself, and in between my pumping sessions. So it was a lot going on at once, but I was making it work. I needed to make it work. And so that was the first day. First day was very tiring. Something I really liked about the NICU is that I was able to call at any time I wanted and talk to the nurse who was taking care of her, and she would give me an update. After we left the NICU, I'd go to postpartum with Ben and get ready for bed, take a shower, and right before I can fall asleep, I would call the nurse and just see how Camila's doing. Give me any update there was. I really needed that because I couldn't be right next to her sleeping. I really needed that phone call, and sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and just call. The morning of day 2, we go see Camila just in time for rounds. The neonatologist comes and talks to us, telling us she's doing really good, that around noon she is going to be bottle fed. So I'm so excited because I was gonna be able to feed her. I was really excited to be able to feed her because so much had gotten taken away from me. Like, I was sad that I wasn't able to hold her right away or say when to feed her. I felt like I was kind of stripped away a lot of like my mom duties. I felt like sometimes the nurses were seeing her more than I was seeing her, and that just kind of felt really crappy as a new mom. But I was so excited. We were gonna get to feed her. I had, of course, like some of our favorite nurses. One of my favorite nurses was with Camila a lot at the time that she was in the NICU, so I was very happy. And that nurse, during her care times, she really let us be the ones to like change her diaper and check her temperature and just do all the stuff with her instead of being like, no, I'm the nurse, let me do it. She really allowed us to be like us as her parents to do it. And I know me and Ben really appreciated that. So we had noon, came around and she was eating. I was so excited. We were able to feed her. She ate great. They were a little worried that she was gonna have a hard time eating. And they did tell me she would have to get a GI tube put in if she wasn't gonna be able to feed on her own, but she picked up the bottle right away. So we were so excited. And so she started eating every 3 hours on our care times. And at this point, I was still not producing any breast milk, so that was a little hard, but she was getting donated breast milk, so I was okay with that. I wanted her to have breast milk, so if it couldn't be my own yet, if we have to have used donor milk for a little while, that's fine. I didn't want to do formula personally if I didn't need to. It was maybe 8, 9. Camila was very, very fussy, and it's so hard having a baby who is extremely fussy and you're not able to hold him. She's crying and crying and you're not able to hold him, and I've been there all day. I am frustrated not at Camila when she's crying for hours. I was frustrated at the fact that I couldn't lift her up. As her mom, when she's crying, all you want to do is lift up your baby and like comfort them. You want to be there for them, and I couldn't do that for her. And you feel really helpless when a nurse is coming in and telling you what to do as a mom, when you just want to hold your baby and make them feel better. I think Camila cried for like over an hour before a nurse came in, and like at that point I was already teary because there was nothing I can do. I knew she was hungry. They weren't giving her very much, or the doctor wasn't allowing her to eat too much yet. She was very fussy. She didn't want her pacifier. She just wanted to be held. I mean, she's 2 days old. Who wouldn't want to be just held? After crying for about an hour, I was getting teary. I think Ben was a little teary too, just at the fact that we felt really helpless as parents. The nurse came in and told us, like, I think you guys need to go. And I was very mad. I was very mad that I was like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to feel like I'm getting kicked out of seeing my own baby. She's crying. I want to be the one to help her feel better. And she was just telling me, like, I think you need a break. You know, she's just getting overstimulated. You guys have been touching her arms and legs all day and her head, and she's hungry and she's fussy. You both need a break. You need to go to your room. Like, it's just gonna be okay. And I left crying that night, going back to postpartum, because I feel like I was kicked out of being a mom for the night, and that was just not a good feeling to have. And I know the nurse was only doing her job. I wasn't mad at her. I was just mad at the entire situation, really. We go to our room, and I think that night I couldn't sleep. I kept calling and just checking on her, and she told me the neonatologist did okay Camila to eat more. So I was super happy about that because I knew that's what she wanted. And it was hard for me as her mom to not have control over my baby's eating. I know she's hungry. I know she wants more. And I, as her mom, couldn't say, give her more food. No, I was being told, this is how much she's eating, and that's the way it is. And that was hard because it was just another thing that was taken away from me as being her mom. But so she was doing better. I cried throughout the night, and that was just a really hard night for us. But that next morning, it was new day, new nurse, Camila was eating more through the night. First thing, I woke up and I called the nurse before I even started to get ready. I was just talking to her. I called her, and she said Camila was eating double the amount, so I was super excited about that, and that she was doing really, really good. Day 3 was also when I was going to be getting discharged from postpartum. So I was happy to be able to go home, but I wasn't happy that I wouldn't be so close to Camila. At this point, we still knew Camila was doing really good, still no oxygen, still no extra medication, but we didn't know when she was going home. We knew she wasn't going to have surgery in the next few days, but we didn't know exactly when she was going to go home. So there was still a lot of unknowns. On day 3, I got discharged in the morning, and we loaded up the car with all of our stuff, and then we went to the NICU to go see Camila. She was doing really good, and then the nurse and the neonatologist do come in and tell us Camila might be going home in the next day or two. And I was just like, what? I wasn't prepared. I was thinking Camila was gonna come home a month after being born. So I really wasn't prepared. Her nursery wasn't done. I had 0 newborn baby clothes because the plan wasn't for her to come home until a month later. So I was super excited about having Camila come home, but there was still a lot of unknown. When's her first surgery come up? What exactly is wrong with her heart? What are the different complications that we'd anticipate? So there was a lot of unknowns still. After a few hours in the NICU, I did come home. I had been talking to my mom every day and my parents and FaceTiming them and showing them Camila. Because Camila was eating on her own, also she didn't need any medication, that she got her IV taken out of her umbilical cord. The only thing they were a little bit worried about was she had a high belly ribbon number. They told us they were gonna wait a few hours and recheck, and if it didn't go down, they were just gonna put her under a blue light. I had been talking to my mom, and I'm like, Mom, they're telling me Camila's coming home in the next day or two. I didn't have anything ready for her, but my mom had taken 6 weeks off of work just to be able to help me out with anything I needed, because we had anticipated Camila having surgery. She knew I was gonna be spending most of my time in the NICU and recovery with her in the PICU. So she wanted to help me with any like house chores and things that she could help me with in that way. So she had taken the time off already. Came to my house and started putting together her nursery. We did already have like her crib and her dresser, but just there was lots of stuff in here. I mean, we had gotten gifts dropped off and sent to us. This Camila was gonna come home and nothing was really ready here. My parents washed. I wanted to wash her clothes before she wore any of it. I wanted to just set everything up, and nothing was set up yet. So I was very grateful that my parents, before Camila was coming home, came to my house and were able to set up her room. After being in the NICU for a few hours, we did come home just to drop off all of our stuff that we had with us. We had a lot of stuff with us since we had to stay in the hospital the entire time. Ben had to stay in the hospital the whole time we were there. He couldn't leave, so we had brought a lot of stuff with us. So we did come home. I also got to see my parents, and it was nice to just see my mom after everything and see my dad and just like hug them after like giving birth and seeing Camila. And yeah, it felt really nice. I wanted to like have an announcement picture for her, just announcing, you know, she's born, and I had like the really cute wrap and like matching bow for her. And so because she was no longer hooked up to any IVs, I wasn't able to take those pictures. A lot of family didn't know she was in the NICU, and I didn't want to like really show that she was in the NICU yet. I was really just not ready to like answer all the questions yet and to talk about it yet, just because there was also a lot of unknowns on my end. So we went back to the NICU after being home and eating. I did take her pictures, which I was really excited about, and I'll make sure to add them in here. Now, when we got there, she did have the blue light on her. It was like a mat that was like wrapped around her. When we first entered, it kind of caught me off guard because she looked like kind of like a little alien, because she was wearing little like, you know, eye protective, kind of like sunglasses for her, but they weren't sunglasses. They were like these little eye covers, and she was wrapped in this blue light. So it was just like I walked in, and the nurse wasn't in her room at the time. So I walked in, I was just like, whoa, like, I mean, I knew she would be put under the blue light. I didn't know what it was gonna look like, so she just looked a little weird. But the nurse came in and told us, hey, like her belly ribbon number still hadn't gone down, so we're just gonna put her under the blue light. We were excited to know that she did get her umbilical cord IV catheter taken out. We were able to hold her, so I was so excited. We held her, but then we had to put her back in the blue light mat thing for her to be in. Sometimes what I would do is I just put the entire blue light mat like on me, so I kind of felt like I was holding her still. I really wanted to be able to hold my baby any way that I could, even if that meant wrapped up in this blue light, then that's what it meant, and I was okay. That day, the cardiologist came in again and just said, no, she's looking awesome. Her numbers are doing great. Her heart sounds really good. She's not needing any oxygen, any medicine. Everything's looking really good. She's probably honestly gonna go home tomorrow. and I was just taken by surprise, but really excited. So he also had told me, he kind of did explain, because I did ask him, the last time he told me about her heart being a little bit more complicated, it was hard for me to really understand because it was the first time I was hearing it. I had just given birth. Like, can you kind of explain to me again, like, what's going on? And he kind of did. He did tell me that her ventricles did look like there was still the large VSD in between them, but they did look to be not side by side. They looked more to be at an angle. It was going to be harder to have corrective surgery for that. And then he did say, because her numbers looked so good and because of the orientation and the anatomy of her heart, that she would need a PA banding surgery in a few weeks. He told me that we would be seeing her normal cardiologist about a week after we were discharged, and that he would really go more into depth about what that looks like and give me more details. There was still a lot of questions I had, but I knew they would get answered with her normal cardiologist. I trust him so much, and he always makes sure that I know exactly what's going on, and he will let me ask 1,000,005 questions. So I was frustrated that I couldn't get all my questions answered, but very happy to know that I would be seeing her normal doctor and they would be answered, and I knew that. Later that day, her surgeon also came in, and he, did tell me Camila is looking awesome. She is, very pleased with how she's doing. She's doing better than what we expected, and so she's gonna be going home. I was super excited, still, but okay, so I did start asking, like, can you tell me, like, what is this PA banding? I mean, I was so lost and confused. We went from, we're gonna do a corrective surgery right away to she's gonna have multiple surgeries. What he did is he had his phone with him, and on his phone he kind of showed me like a 3D model of an idea of what her heart looks like, and kind of showing me how her ventricles look. He did say, they are more, instead of being horizontal, they're vertical. And he was telling me that she's gonna need a PA banding, so a pulmonary artery banding. And he did, show me his phone where on the heart that would be. And he was just telling me that it's so her lungs don't get so much fluid. It was still hard to understand, but I was like, okay, I trust this man. I had spent, hours asking him questions. I trust what he's saying. I was really sad to know, she's gonna go through more than what we expected, but I was excited to bring her home. So it was very bittersweet because she was gonna come home, but she was gonna be having more than one surgery. And I still didn't know what that looked like. On day 3, another thing, because we were NICU parents, they had us watch a bunch of different videos before we were able to go home. So we watched like a few hours worth of some videos. It was like infant CPR and like purple crying and car seat safety, and just a bunch of videos really that they require any NICU parent to watch before taking their kid home. I watched those, and that was exciting because it just meant like we were that much closer to going home. They did tell us to bring in Camila's car seat, because once Camila passed her car seat test, which was really having a pulse ox on while being in her car seat, if she was good for an hour and her oxygen looked good, she passed her car seat test and we were going to be able to go home, and that was the final test she needed to pass. I was super excited. After day 3, it was hard because we had to go home and leave her in the NICU. I knew I was going to still be calling the NICU nurse in the middle of the night before I went to bed, or anytime I woke up in the middle of the night, but it was just hard to go home without your baby. I think every mom, is super excited to go home with their newborn baby, and I was going home without mine. And that was, I knew that was coming before I even had her, but it's different when you know it's gonna happen than actually living it, actually going through it. But it was okay. She was doing really good, and I was grateful for that. Come day 4, we bring her car seat. She does her car seat test. She does awesome. Cardiology still, they come and see her every day, so she's still, she gets seen by the cardiologist, and they still say, yep, she looks good, we're cleared by us, she can go home. The neonatologist said, yep, she's cleared by us, she's good to go home. So really, Camila was able to come home. Her belly ribbon numbers looked good. She no longer needed the blue light. So at about 3-ish, we got discharged and we were going home. I was very happy that Camila was only in the NICU for 4 days. I know that is very short compared to what we expected and very short for a NICU stay for a lot of parents. So we were very happy about that. Going home was a different story. I mean, we were very nervous because you go from having her on a pulse ox 24/7, having a nurse there 24/7, her being under care the entire time, medical professionals there the entire time, to you're coming home with us and we hope everything's okay. You know, Camila does have heart conditions. She does have medical conditions that we are very concerned about, and it's scary knowing that you're going home with the baby who has medical issues, but here you go, you gotta go home now. It's very nerve-wracking. Like, how am I supposed to be without a pulse ox? How am I supposed to be without a nurse to ask any question I have? Yeah, it was very hard. And my next video will be about us coming home and what that looked like for us. I will talk about meeting with her cardiologist and really explaining what her next surgery looked like. And we did have a few scares there and what those were and how we, dealt with them. So I hope you guys will come back next week for that video. Please like and subscribe, and please share this video with others. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.